Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Talking to the Void. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, and today we're continuing the series, The Death of the MCU, with a brief tangent. In case you missed the first episode, I am currently releasing a series about why I have fallen out of love with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and why I think they've screwed up their future as a franchise. If you haven't watched the first episode, I'd highly recommend viewing it before this one, as this is a series that largely builds on previous episodes. Now, without further ado, let me go on a brief tangent in this series about the Incredible Hulk. Before I get into the second warning sign that should have told us the MCU was headed down the wrong path, I'd like to briefly address the movie that nobody talks about in the MCU, The Incredible Hulk. People like to pretend this one doesn't exist because Mark Ruffalo takes over the role from Edward Norton in subsequent films, and The Incredible Hulk feels very separate from the rest of the MCU entries, at least in my opinion. Not to mention the fact that events from The Incredible Hulk are seldom referenced in the rest of the MCU, and seeing that movie is not strictly necessary for understanding of the Hulk's character or how he fits into the Avengers. It introduces his character, yes, but if you skip this movie like I did when I watched through the whole MCU timeline from beginning to end, you won't be worse off for it. Unlike if you skipped the first Captain America movie, for example. Some people don't believe that the Incredible Hulk film should be part of the MCU canon. Some people consider it a mistake. Personally, I don't think this film was a mistake or that it contributes in any way to the gradual downward spiral that the MCU has taken. It introduces our second member of the Avengers, after the previous introduction of Iron Man, in the titular 2008 movie Iron Man, and the one hiccup was replacing the actor for Bruce Banner / the Hulk. But that's just something that happens occasionally in showbiz. According to the internet, Edward Norton stepped away from that role after just one film because of creative differences. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But it really has no bearing on the rest of the MCU because Mark Ruffalo quickly filled that role without an issue. It's also worth noting that this change in actors happened so early in the timeline that it's easy to forgive and overlook and honestly forget, and doesn't significantly change future entries in the MCU. When you're first starting something out, you get a little more grace because, hey, you're new at it. Now, if this had happened later down the line, say within Phase 3 of the MCU, that's when things might get complicated. My point in bringing this up is that even though this movie was seen by some as a quote-unquote mistake, and it has little influence or impact in the MCU, it hardly compares to ways that the MCU shot itself in the foot later on, like in Avengers Age of Ultron, which I mentioned in my previous video. The Incredible Hulk movie does not fundamentally change the structure or the course of the MCU, and it does not have serious implications, such as the existence of the multiverse, which they unintentionally did with Avengers Age of Ultron, as I mentioned in my previous video. My point in bringing this up is really just to say that this movie, The Incredible Hulk, is viewed as a mistake within the MCU by some. There are some people who love the film, no judgment either way. But even though this is viewed as a mistake by some, it really does not compare to the rest of the mistakes that I'm going to be talking about that Marvel has made along the way. And I just wanted to bring it up and share my thoughts on it because some people are like, well, they screwed up really early on. This is when things started to go bad, but I don't really believe that. I think it starts to get bad in Avengers Age of Ultron, as I discussed in my previous video. Anyway, that is all for episode 2 of my series, The Death of the MCU. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like this video and consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos in this series. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Sending you all the love.